Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here on 1495 Sports for the Mixer, episode 11. I'm ecstatic to be here. We're here going to be covering a monumental fight card this weekend, UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. But first, let's recap my last episode where we're talking about Bellator 300 and UFC on Vegas 80. And I went 6-2 on my picks. I'm very proud of myself. You still got it. I still got it. So I was very happy. I went undefeated on picks in Bellator 300. I had 3-0 there, and then I went 3-2. Not as good on UFC action for the UFC on Vegas 80 picks. Huge props to Bobby Green for totally proving me wrong with his destructive finish of Arnold Allen in a mere, I believe, 36 seconds or so. Statement finish there, and again, kudos to him for completely disproving me. And that's the beauty of the sport. It's the beauty of MMA. You never know what's going to happen, and let me tell you, that was a very, very unpredictable finish. So again, props to Bobby Green for making it happen. But let's jump right into this weekend's card. We have a huge fight card. UFC 294, Islam Makhachev rematches Alexander Volkanovski in what is supposed to be a huge rematch. It's not supposed to be. It's going to be a huge rematch. Unfortunately, on short notice, Charles Oliveira will not be in action. He sustained a cut. So on barely 2 weeks' notice, we'll have Alexander the Great stepping in for this huge rematch. This is Islam's last fight as well, was against Volk, where he took the decision. And now he'll be meeting again, Volkanovski, who actually is coming off a win, a very destructive battering, I might add, of Yair Rodriguez at featherweight, and now he moves up again on short notice to the lightweight division at 155, which is, in my opinion, the best division in MMA. It's the most exciting. I think it's been consistently the most exciting. And if I had to pick one division for my all-time favorite, it would probably very likely be lightweight. But in any case, we have the 13-1 in the UFC. Islam Makhachev, also, funny enough, 13-1 in UFC action, is Alexander the Great. And prior to his loss, he was riding a 22-fight win streak, which is insane. I mean, Volkanovski easily a GOAT, easily one, someone that people refer to as one of the greatest of all time. No matter what, his body of work, his resume is super impressive, and he looks to really put a stamp on his legacy and his career against Islam, who hasn't lost in nearly 10 years, I might add. I believe his last loss was to Martins by TKO in 2015. So, yeah, it's about almost 10 years. And he's looked like a GOAT himself in these last 8 years of action. And I will say Volkanovski gave him a very, very challenging fight. Some have argued that he even may have lost that fight. But I do believe these guys are going to go the distance again. I expect another exciting fight. I very much wish it was not on short notice, but obviously, hey, listen, we have an excellent fight no matter what the circumstances are. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev by unanimous decision. I think he'll be looking a bit fresher in this fight compared to the first fight, and I do believe that he has the experience. He has the experience of fighting against Volkanovski specifically to be able to neutralize him, and also he's going to be the bigger man. So Volkanovski is coming up obviously from featherweight, but I expect another 5-round classic. I'm going with Islam by unanimous decision. In the middleweight division, speaking of replacements, we have Kazmat Kamaev fighting Kamaru Usman, the former UFC welterweight champion, and stepping in on short notice as well against Paulo Costa. Props, again, huge props to guys like Usman and Volkanovski who step up on short notice against very dangerous fighters to save these fight cards and make sure that the action, the pay-per-views are still happening for fans like ourselves. Can't stress how amazing and thankful I am for people like that. And we have apparently a guaranteed title shot. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be immediate. But in this fight in the middleweight division, Kamaev returns to middleweight against Usman, who will be fighting for the first time at middleweight against Chimaev in what is arguably a dream fight. This is something that a lot of people have wanted to see, albeit in the welterweight division. We're going to see it middleweight. However, we're going to see a fight that people are dying to see at middleweight, and it's going to be very interesting. Usman's coming off 2 losses to the current UFC welterweight champion in Leon Edwards, and we have Chimaev, who hasn't fought in over a year, which is very unlike him. I remember not too long ago he did like 3 fights in like less than a month. But in any case, he is finally back, and he's putting his undefeated record at stake against the former UFC welterweight champion in what is going to be a very interesting fight. I mean, Chimaev arguably did not look very good against Gilbert Burns. He kind of really ran through Kevin Holland. However, Gilbert Burns really did give him a big fight, something that some people may have argued exposed Chimaev. In any case, he faces a man who's not shy to title fights, a man who's been at the top in the welterweight division for the longest in Usman, and this is a very intriguing fight, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, whether you agree with the title shot being handed or not, they're not ranked at middleweight at the moment. Chimaev hasn't fought in over a year. He'd be beating a welterweight. There's been a lot of pushback on that, but I disagree. To play both sides of this, Chimaev is undefeated. He has fought at middleweight before. He's going to be, if he does win, he'd be beating a UFC welterweight champion. In addition, if Usman takes the win, he actually already owns a victory over the current UFC middleweight champion in Sean Strickland, and back in 2017. So you have a rematch right there. I think it kind of, in that regard, when you put it that way, and you exclude rankings, which again, it's debatable whether that makes sense, but the point being that he does own a victory over the current champion. It does make for an intriguing storyline, and that said, this fight is going to be a toss-up. You have Usman, who, despite coming out on the losing end of the fights against Leon Edwards, did look pretty solid. More so in the first fight. He did look solid in the first fight, in my opinion. The second fight, he didn't look as good, but again, he's been training. He's been in fight shape. It's going to be interesting to see him fighting up a weight class. Chimaev has had issues making weight. He hasn't fought in over a year. It really does produce a very intriguing possible upset by Usman. I think we're going to see Chimaev edge out maybe a split decision here. I have a unanimous decision, but honestly, the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, I think I'm going to go with Chimaev by split decision, and I think it's going to be a very, very telling fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Usman manages to take this one, but either way, I'm very much intrigued, especially with all the stories that could potentially be coming out of this one. Moving on, we have in the light heavyweight division, we have Magomed Ankalaev against Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker riding a 3-fight win streak, and he'll be facing a man who was this close to light heavyweight title ownership, of having the light heavyweight title in Ankalaev, and he came up short against Jan Blachowicz in a hotly contested draw against Jean, and now he gets to move up the ladder again, and this time fighting Johnny Walker. So we have a very intriguing fight. Johnny Walker is a pretty inconsistent fighter, in my opinion. That said, I think stylistically, Ankalaev is a bit of a nightmare for Walker, in my opinion, and I think we're going to see Ankalaev take a clear-cut 30-27 unanimous decision victory over Johnny Walker. Moving on to middleweight, we have Ikram Aliskerov. I hope I'm pronouncing all these names right. I've been practicing against also stepping up on short notice as well, Varley Alves. And unfortunately for Alves, this is a very, very tough fight. I really don't see Ikram losing this one. He's 14-1. He's undefeated in the UFC. One victory, but he is undefeated, and I think he'll continue that streak. He'll be 2-0 against Alves, who hasn't won in a few years. He's fighting up a weight class. I mean, he has been in there with people like Colby Covington. He actually owns a victory over Covington, but I just don't think the circumstances are in his favor. I think we're going with Ikram by TKO in the first round. Closing out the main card of UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. We have the bantamweights in action. We have Said Nurmagomedov against Muin Guffarov. Someone will correct me at some point. Both gentlemen coming off losses in action in their most recent UFC appearances. I expect a very, very fun fight here. Both guys are pretty darn exciting. I do believe I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov. It's a very familiar last name, although to my knowledge I don't think they're related. But in any case, I'm going with Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision. And again, this is going to be a very fun fight card. We have a lot to look forward to, a lot to see. I'm very excited. I'll be tuning in. A couple of people on the prelims that I wanted to highlight. Actually, I feel like I'm going to put a parlay on FanDuel for all the undefeated fighters. To my knowledge, this has to be one of the most. I think it has the most. Don't quote me on this, but I believe the most undefeated fighters on one fight card. I believe because I counted 6, and I feel like playing a whole parlay of just all 6 fighters. I'm very much intrigued by it. I think I'm going to do it. But in any case, we have Shara Bullet. Didakova, Jubilee, Basharat, and Kamaev, the aforementioned Kamaev, and Makhachev? I'm getting it. In any case, they're all undefeated. I believe they're all going to be coming out with victories, and I think it's a very intriguing parlay. 6-0. We'll be undefeated there, and then maybe be a bit richer. We'll get some new backgrounds here for the mixer. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the show. This is going to be a big stacked fight card. We'll see how my picks measure up. I didn't do pretty bad on my return. I think 6-2 is pretty respectable. And yeah, I know I'll be tuning in. I know y'all will be tuning in as well. So yeah, and you know what? Hopefully we'll get some more coverage coming up. I'm looking forward to hopefully doing more interviews. Like I said before on last episode, we've had people like Matt Serra, we've had Aljamain Sterling, we've had Eddie Truck Gordon, Glover Teixeira. We've had a who's who on the show before, and I would love for that to happen again, hopefully in the very, very near future. I want to thank you all for tuning in. This has been The Mixer with Steven Dumeng. Episode 11 on 1495 Sports. Give him a shout. Give him a repost. Switched it to retweeting to a repost. Check them out. 1495 Sports. Check out UFC 294. And I'm very much looking forward to the fight card. And I'll see you soon. Thank you guys.